Everybody, it's Steve Tarter, another edition of Tartar Sauce here at the palatial Peoria Journal-Star in Peoria, Illinois. And with me today, a great pleasure to have the president of Illinois Central College, Dr. Sheila Quirk-Bailey. Sheila, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me, Steve.
Now, Sheila, you're about to celebrate an anniversary at ICC. In July, you'll be been there 2 years.
Absolutely.
2 years. Now, you're no stranger to Peoria because we talked about that. Bradley University grad. Worked at Caterpillar, so done many things in education. What do you find at ICC? When you're sitting on an airplane and somebody's right beside you and you're from Peoria, and you say, yeah, I'm a ICC president. Oh, ICC, what's that? What do you say in a short time about your school?
So my elevator speech is...
It's your elevator speech, wherever it is.
There are three things that ICC brings to this community that can change it and sustain it. And the first is that we have very high educational quality. Mm-hmm. Students who transfer from ICC into state universities have higher GPAs at the end of their junior year than the students who started there. Oh. So we are an excellent launching point for university education. The other thing is we bring tremendous economic value. Most students get through ICC without having to take out any loans. We offer over 600 different scholarships a year to help students who can't afford it get through. And we recommend that you save that first 2 years of what you'd pay at a university and use that for the first car or down payment on the first house. And as opposed to starting your life in debt, start your life on a good foot.
There's a good way to start. Yeah.
It's great quality. And then finally, we are very focused on providing workforce-based experiences that tackle our current workforce gaps so people can get the post-secondary credentials they need to earn a family-sustaining wage in this community. So those are the three things we're focused on.
On that last point, because I think we were talking earlier, and I think those of us that have done any kind of stories at all in the workplace thing, it's clear there are jobs out there that employers need to fill, but they can't find enough qualified candidates. That's where ICC comes in. You're moving. Well, you said something starting this fall that will work in that regard.
Absolutely, we are dedicated to taking the community, the residents we have, and turning them into the workforce we need. There is a tremendous workforce gap in manufacturing, in IT, and in healthcare in this community. So we're partnering with businesses in those industries to try to turn that around. And one way to do that is with apprenticeships. So with an apprenticeship, you would take somebody and they become an employee of the company before they start the educational program. So we are starting a brand new apprenticeship in industrial maintenance in August. So those students, their first block of education will happen for 8 weeks, and we're teaching it boot camp style. So they'll go to school full-time 4 days a week, with Friday being a catch-up day. And then for the rest of the program, it's 4 weeks full-time at the company working. So they apply the skills they just learned. They come back to us for a month, and they learned a new set of skills, and they go back out in the community or to their employer, and they apply that. So those rotations happen for 2.5 years. And
do you have the companies already lined up?
We do.
And who are they?
They are CAT, AECOM, and Allcast, and another 3 companies who are still considering joining us for August.
And that's, when you mentioned apprenticeships, I think that's an area that is fascinating to me because we were talking earlier about and we'll get to this one, the secure software program that ICC kind of pioneered, I would say, in the whole nation. But Gary Shishigari, who's been on this podcast, and has talked long and hard about the benefit of apprenticeships, has always looked at Europe as an example, Germany, Switzerland, wherever, where they've done it very successfully. Obviously, there's differences in the countries, but you can see probably apprenticeship really picking up here in the United States and maybe here in Central Illinois.
Definitely in the United States, and we're working really hard in Central Illinois. When we talk to companies about this, what we say is the approach to post and pray probably is not a good business strategy. So what we currently do is, whether it's online, wherever you get your word out, you just hope someone shows up who happens to have the skill set you want.
Right.
If you use an apprenticeship model, you would pay the student as they go through the program, but you're paying them less of a wage than if they came to you fully prepared. So the money you're saving on salaries, you're investing in them in terms of education. So at the end of that program, you now have an employee with 2.5 years experiences who knows your processes, who knows your machines, if it's IT, who knows your programs, who can basically hit the ground running, and you get the productivity of someone with 2 or 3 years experience.
Right.
Right out of a college degree. So if you think about it from a company HR management standpoint, what percentage of your workforce do you know due to attrition, due to turnover, due to retirement that you need to fill on an annual basis? And what percentage of that do you want to pre-order to make sure you're never caught completely shorthanded with a skills gap? We have manufacturers, people looking for welders, people looking for machinists who've said that those jobs have gone unfilled for a year or two.
Oh.
And if you would have taken that time to invest in someone to go through the program, you would have had someone who was skilled and trained by your folks. Because the apprenticeships, that on-the-job piece, you have a mentor who actually trains you to do it the CAT way or the AECOM way or the all-cast way.
Right.
And it just brings tremendous value to companies.
Is there, and I'm playing the devil's advocate here, is there a tendency on some employers' part to think, well, I'm going to train them and then they're going to run away? In other words, I will have invested in this individual, and there they go with what I've given them to go to another job.
Now, people are going to think I'm paying you to ask these questions. So we actually have
not enough.
I'll give you a share of what I'm making to do the podcast. How's that? That is part of the program. So if a company invests in you and they pay your tuition and they pay you to work for them for that 2.5 years, you sign an agreement with that company that you will stay with them for 2 years after that.
Ah, yes. Okay.
Also, the national data shows that when students have been sponsored as an apprentice, the loyalty to that company is just through the roof because they know they never would have had that opportunity had the company not done that. If you think about a student in poverty who's currently working 2 or 3 jobs, well, it's wonderful that someone might pay their tuition, but they still have to eat and have a place to live while they go through school. So even if the tuition is free, they can't go back to school. They can't reinvest in themselves to earn these skills. It's not a matter of intelligence. It's not a matter of capability. It's a matter of resource. So in an apprenticeship program where you have these paid working opportunities throughout the program, someone can now stop working those 3 part-time jobs without benefits, put themselves into a program where they're an employee of the company wins, the individual wins, and without programs like this, you can't connect those dots. So we're really trying to get that message out to our community.
Do you find is your sense that this message is going to finally get across? Because it seems when you're just looking at what you've just said, well, that makes absolute perfect sense. So you've got a big need over here, and put the two together, and you go. Yet there seemed to be some, at least at one point, some hesitancy to do that. Do you feel that the businesses are coming around?
I feel they are. We really do need the community to come together around the workforce issue and understand this at a different level. So we're hoping to do a campaign
the whole community,
to help
not just
the entire community.
Okay.
Right. Social service agencies need to be involved because they can refer people in.
Right.
High schools, we have a wonderful program where we're working to set up a career cluster structure with the high schools. So the Greater Peoria Economic Development Group is working with middle schoolers in terms of determining what career cluster they would like to enter.
Which would be a category of?
There are 16 federal categories of career clusters. So think ag, think manufacturing, think IT, think business management. All careers fit into one of these 16 categories. Right. So research shows that students don't decide what they want to do when they're in 7th grade, but they decide what they're not going to do. And they're often deciding that I don't want to go into healthcare based on they don't want to be a doctor or a nurse, and they have no idea of the other 28 careers that pay family-sustaining wages that have openings now
in this town,
in our region.
Yeah.
Right. They think of manufacturing as being dark and gray and without a future, and they have no idea what opportunities lie in some of those jobs. So they are taking the lead to work with middle schools to make sure that those messages are happening. And then we're partnering together with them with dual credit opportunities. So our goal is that every high school student would graduate with college credit, and that they are prepared, if not knowing the exact career, or at least the career cluster, the area they want to focus on as they go off to college or to a tech school or into the military to earn their credential, because everyone needs a post-secondary credential to earn a family-sustaining wage.
And you were saying to me earlier, and want you to give that statistic, I think Georgetown came up with this sort of level of sustainability. You need 60% of the population there to have this post-secondary. I'll let you say it.
Absolutely. So the study out of Georgetown that's been confirmed by multiple other economic research groups says if a region is going to be economically vibrant, right, if they're going to grow, they need 60% of their adult population to have a post-secondary credential. Now, that's not necessarily a 4-year or 2-year degree.
Right.
That could be an industry certification. That could be an apprenticeship credential. That could be a credential that comes out of the military. But if you don't have that level, you won't be able to fill the job openings to grow businesses.
Right.
Now, our current situation in the greater Peoria area is we only have 40%.
Wow, we're pretty far off.
We are far off. But ICC is the linchpin to making that happen. What I tell our team back on the campuses is that we have a moral imperative to take the population we have and turn it into the workforce businesses need. That helps the individual, right? It changes the trajectory of their lives, that of their families. It builds the workforce so company can grow, and it helps grow our regional economy. So there is an awful lot riding on our ability to take the adults we have and turn them into the adults we need. And a big part of that strategy are sponsored programs and apprenticeship programs.
And that, again, it makes so much sense when you say it, because, I mean, then it becomes, okay, we all need to pull together on this. ICC, for those that don't know, and we're always addressing an audience that sometimes is not familiar with Peoria, but ICC, Illinois Central College, has 2 campuses now, one in East Peoria, one in Peoria. How do you divide? What's the division there? Do you have some things in one, or how do you look at the 2 campus setup that you oversee?
It's a great question. So in terms of our general education classes, those are offered on both campuses. But when you talk about training people for specific careers where customized labs are required, those are usually just offered on one campus. So for example, all of our mechanical technical programs, so think electrical, think mechanical, think CNC machining, think welding, are all offered on our East Peoria campus, and we don't replicate those labs over in Peoria.
Right.
But on the Peoria campus, we have a brand new building that we just opened last August with state-of-the-art health career program training. So we've got labs with sim men in everything from surgical tech to our CNA to respiratory therapy to nursing. So in that surge tech, that sim machine, they actually can perform surgery. They can see all the major systems in the body. If when you're working with that, if you nick the blood vessel, it bleeds. I mean, so amazing technology. If you haven't been out to see those new buildings, I would recommend that to anybody. But we don't then replicate all of that specialty then back on the East Peoria campus. So if you're if you're taking that transfer degree, so the Associate of Arts degree, to go on to study at U of I or wherever you'd be going, you can take that on either campus.
Okay.
But those specialized workforce programs with those specialized labs just happened on one campus or the other. And if you go to our website, it lays out what is where.
And I was telling you earlier, I was just out at ICC last week. We're doing a story on drones that are used in agriculture for upcoming supplement that Journal Star runs every year on education. And it's fascinating to me. Of course, in the summer, things are a little slower than normal, as they are anywhere. But just wandering around there, as I tend to do without meaning to, because I go in one way and come out the other, and then all of a sudden I'm lost. But construction going on there, the big Caterpillar machine digging up something. I went by the Performing Arts Center. I mean, obviously driving in there, you see all the fields that are there, and that's where they take the students out and show them how the drones work and all that. You've really got a great facility when you look at all that you have at ICC. And again, I think the word we used, or the phrase we used, was some people who have been around here a long time kind of take it for granted because maybe they haven't been out there lately, or they have a mental picture that maybe doesn't jive with what's out there now.
When people walk on campus and haven't been there a while, one of the first things they say is, "Oh, this is a community college." I mean, the place looks like a park.
Oh, yeah.
We have amazing facilities and wonderful labs. And you would ask before we started what surprised me when I started here. And one of the things was I think the community does take us a little for granted. So when someone asks me for my elevator speech, what I say is, there are three things that ICC brings to this community that it's not in the community's best interest to overlook. And the first is the quality of our education. When students start at ICC and transfer on, the grade point average they earn by the end of their junior year is higher than the students who started at the university they transferred to. So from their smaller class sizes, we're more flexible in a community college setting sometimes than they can afford to be in a university. And so just from a quality of education standpoint, you can't beat ICC.
How do you go about recruiting students? Because I want to get into Illinois a little bit because I know that's a tough one because of the budgetary problems. But do you find you have to recruit harder, or does ICC speak for itself? How do you look at that whole matter of for instance, how are your numbers shaping up for the fall?
Right now, we're on track to be a little down for the fall, but we have an event, 2 events next week on programs related to mechanical industrial openings. And I tell you what, this is, again, a moral imperative for us. We've got companies who've agreed to support students with paid workforce experiences while they go to school, and we can't find students to fill them.
Oh, my.
And that's just a travesty. Those are family-sustaining wages waiting. And so we're holding 2 big open houses next week on the 26th and the 29th. You can get information on the website.
Probably good to get media coverage of that, wouldn't it?
It would be great. It would be great to get coverage of that. But the point here is companies are willing to invest to train people who don't have these skill sets. Right. And we can't find folks. So we really have to step up and do our job. I think part of it is the way education overall works in the United States is unlike Europe. It's never been an aligned system. We've always hoped that people magically choose whatever industry is going to need, and that matches up. Right. They got over that 100 years ago in Europe. Right. We're still Americans value choice over anything else. And I'm not saying we take choice away from students, but what I'm saying that should be informed choice. So if people are going to major in something where there is no labor market value and the only way to get a job is to get a master's degree or a PhD, they need to know that before they pick that major. If students are deciding they can't afford to go to school because no one in their family has gone to school and it's taking 3 jobs, we need to find a way to help them understand that there are opportunities like the ones we're talking about, like this industrial maintenance apprenticeship, where not only will you be paid $13 an hour while you work, you will also be paid $13 an hour while you're in the classroom, and you have a guaranteed job for 2 years when you finish that program. So we are working with the high schools, to systemically build this career cluster approach, early college approach, so students understand all of these options as they go through high school, because that's currently not happening. And then we're working with social service agencies to make sure there are people in this community struggle because they don't have a full-time job that pay family-sustaining wages, that they understand the programs that are available and how they could change their lives if they choose one of these options.
If someone is listening or watching this and listening to you, and they say, "Oh, I didn't know that. I've got somebody in my family who could benefit from that." Do they call a counselor at ICC? What do you recommend to get them sort of more information or connected with the school?
On these specific programs where we have these openings that are include a job with pay, they can call our workforce development department, and that's at 690-8663. But if people don't remember that, you can call Enrollment Services or the admissions office, and they'll be able to get you where you need to go.
Okay. So there's a specific number with information on these programs. I mean, somebody there.
Absolutely. And we have a brand new apprenticeship site up on our website that people can go to. And right now we have a banner running that promotes these events and the opportunities that are available. You know, I told my team in a meeting last week, if I have to go knocking door to door, we are not going to tell these companies we cannot find people, right, who don't want these family-sustaining wages. Right. Because we've got to find a better way to connect the dots. Exactly. I'm a big believer, and we have what we need in this community to solve a lot of our woes. We just could be aligned a little better.
Work together a little more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So systemic integration of informed choice in the high schools, bring that message over to our social service agencies. We need to do much more work with parents in terms of what these options are, because some people would be better off, as opposed to getting a more generic 4-year degree, to go with a certificate or a 2-year degree, and data would show that they're going to earn more money over the course of their lives and have more stability than if they would have done something else. So it's not – back in the day when I went to college, right, if you wanted to get ahead in life, you went to college. Right. And I majored in communications. And I was hired by Arthur Andersen right out of school, an accounting firm. Because you didn't have to be trained as an accountant. If you weren't, they would train you. Sure. That's not the way it works anymore. No. Boy, if you don't have the right degree and the right skill set, you're not even getting an interview. In fact, the people at the company won't even see your resume because the computers they scan it into will screen it out. It won't even be considered. Oh, wow. The world's really changed. And the problem is, as parents, most of us are still advising our children on what to do based on the rules that applied when we went to school. Exactly. Or we chose not to go to school. Yeah. And, you know, I get concerned because I do hear a lot in this community that not everyone needs to go to college. And I think what people mean is not every 4-year degree might be worth the investment. Right. But what this community really needs to know is that everyone needs a post-secondary credential to earn a family-sustaining wage. Right. 99% of the new jobs created since 2012 required some post-secondary credential, not necessarily a 4-year degree, but a credential. Take welding, for example. You need to be certified in welding to get a job as a welder, right? We don't. Other than we have a few high schools. Pekin does a great job, right? We have a program in Peoria Public Schools, but most schools do not teach welding anymore. You've got to go get that certificate, right? On your own. On your own to go get that job. So if we could all start thinking differently and advising our children and our students differently, boy, we could do an awful lot. You know, it's hard sometimes to recruit people to come to Peoria, but we have 20% of our population who's already here who would love – you know, a full-time job with benefits. So we've got to make that happen. You know, we've got a brand new product that we put up in February called Career Coach. So if you go to our website on the front page, you can go to that Career Coach link, and what it will tell you, you fill out a 60-question interest survey, and it will say, based on your interest, here's our careers you should consider. How much education you need to enter that career, where you can get that education. It will tell you what those jobs pay. It will tell you the employers in our region who hire people with those jobs, how many they've hired in the last 5 years, and how many they're projected to hire into the future. So that's the kind of information that high school students or adults who need to change careers, who've been laid off or aren't making enough where they currently are, don't currently have benefits, that's the information they need to make an informed choice about where to take their future.
You know, that sounds like something that should be done by, I'll say, every student at 150 or any school system, not necessarily just, you know, so they can find specific, but just out of curiosity, if nothing else. Because I mean, it's like everything else. You know, people take tests all the time to find out what their particular skill set is, or maybe what they prefer, and who knows where that leads, but. I'd be curious just to do that, and I'm 68, so I'm probably not, well, you never know. A little old for the workforce, but there might be somebody out there who wants somebody. But one of the things I want to bring up, and we've talked about all these positive things. Well, now we're going to talk about the state, and oh, there's a phone going off somewhere. Isn't that funny? All right, well, we'll get rid of that. With this happens. Okay. Pardon me, folks. What about the state of Illinois? Because, that seems to be a problem for you and for a lot of other rest of it. Since 2 years you've been there now, what's the story?
Well, when I started, we were entering our second year of not receiving money from the state. And that time period of not being paid went on 2.5 years. And I don't think anyone predicted the impact that would have. So hit the universities harder than the community colleges, but it was a dramatic impact on all community colleges as well. The net result of that is, as of last year, Illinois now is the #1 state for college-going high school graduates to leave the state. Enrollment is up in Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, and Indiana, and it's our students going over the state lines. That really impacts community colleges.
Sure.
Because why would you go 2 years to us to transfer if where you're going to transfer is out of state?
Right.
So I don't think anyone predicted that complication as a result of a state budget gap for higher education, but that's been the net result. So again, we really need to go back to those 3 major benefits that ICC brings this community: exceptionally high quality. You don't have to put your child's future in debt to finish our programs. You could save half the amount of a college education. I've got one local parent who put it this way, and he said best $60,000 he never had to spend by having his 2 children start at ICC and transfer on someplace else.
That makes sense.
And then our complete rededication to offering programs in very unique ways to offer apprenticeships and sponsored programs. Imagine when you're having conversations with faculty about, we're not going to teach that course in 16 weeks anymore. We're going to teach it in 4 weeks. And we're not going to teach it 2 days a week. We're going to teach it 4 days, and we're going to keep them in class 6 to 7 hours a day. And that's a major change in higher ed. It's a major change for someone who has been teaching the same way for a very long time. And I'll tell you, our faculty are amazing. The chair of that program, Steve Flynn, jumped in and he said, we'll do whatever we need. Let's sit down and talk to employers. We'll do whatever we need to do to try to get them the employees they need and take people who are struggling and give them a family-sustaining wage with benefits. We have amazing people at ICC, and we are dedicated to making a difference in this community.
Community colleges across the state, all in the same boat? Have they all seen this erosion that you said with the exodus out of state by
Absolutely.
students?
It's statewide. In fact, our enrollment is better than the state average for a community college. So we're beating the trend, but we're still seeing reductions in enrollment due to the mess that was created.
People moving out.
People leaving the state.
Yeah. Now, with ICC, one of the things I wanted just to mention just briefly, the secure software program that you alluded to. That's a program that I think started at ICC. I mean, I was doing stories at the time, and it's been several years. But that's something that, again, who knows where this could lead? I mean, if Peoria, and maybe this is fanciful because things don't always happen that we want them to, but if we could become a software center, think of the employment that we would have here. And then And you talk about, the point you make about, finding a way to get an education and a job that pays a good wage. Think about how we could secure the internet a little bit, which is a problem we only read about every day with all the breaches and problems and all that. But how is that program going, the secure software at ICC? Well,
we're going to relaunch that in January. What we're finding is we have a ton of transfer students in that program, a handful of apprentices. The issue is our local employers don't have full-time jobs available for someone who just handles security. The way that market is evolving is, they have those jobs, but they tend to be in Silicon Valley or in Atlanta or elsewhere in New England. But that skill set is very needed, but there aren't jobs, at least locally, where that's all you do. So we partnered with CAT, and we're going to do some tweaks to that program. So it will include not only secure software, but embedded software. So think about a GPS system on a CAT tractor.
Okay.
Right? So software has to be written that would take the information from the GPS system and help guide the operations of that piece of equipment. So there's embedded software all over the market in every industry. And so if you put those two things together, Now we've got a much broader market, and the students are much more marketable. So what we've found is secure software was so important, it really needs to be an element in every IT degree.
Right.
But in this particular region, if people just specialize and that's what their entire degree is in, there's limited employment.
And that comes back to the apprenticeship
That comes
program.
back to the apprenticeship program, right. So we were ahead of our time to think of all that. We are now evolving that program where the cutting edge of the industry is going. And Kat's on board and will be sponsoring apprentices to start again in January that program.
Well, very good. Well, we've been talking with Sheila Quirk-Bailey, who's the president of ICC, and what's on your to-do list this summer? I don't need the whole rundown, but if you had your priorities in mind, is it getting that message out that you were talking about?
Well, first of all, when I started with community colleges 26 years ago, I was told summer was a slow season, and I haven't found the slow season yet. So I think there was a bit of false advertising when I changed.
She got in here before me today, folks, too. So I want to say that. That's
the farmer in me, right? You're always 15 minutes early. But job one right now is to get the message out to this community that we've got companies who are willing to pay tuition and fees and or provide employment and paid workforce jobs as people learn, and we can't fill them. These are family-sustaining wages, and we, like I said, if we have to knock on doors, we are going to help grow the opportunities for individuals and put them with these wonderful employers who are going to pull them through on the other side. So we've got openings in our CAT dealership positions, so think diesel engine mechanics. We've got openings in our GMA SEP program, which are people who are auto technicians working for GM dealerships. We've got openings still in that industrial maintenance apprenticeship program. And like I said, we are not going to let paid opportunities for students to learn go unfilled. So that's job one right now. Aside from that, we are doing a tremendous amount of work with some new analysis we're doing in terms of how we offer courses. We've always offered courses in the evening, but any given student with any given major may not have been able to finish the entire degree in the evening. So people get started, and then somewhere along the line, right, they need to take a class during the day, but they work during the day, and then they can't complete their program. So we're relaunching what we're calling Evening College, and we have a whole set of 14 different majors that we will guarantee not only can you complete all in the evening, but you can do that within 2.5 years. Some things we've never offered in the evening. So our culinary program is going to run starting in the fall, and that's always completely full. Oh, yeah. We have an international reputation for our culinary program.
We've been over there, believe me. General Starr knows about your culinary program.
Don't they do a great job? And so there will be an evening cohort of that. Students can get through on all of our transfers, so those Associate of Arts, Associate in Science transfer degrees, all in the evening. And again, we're trying to meet the workforce gap, so we're now doing welding programs in the evening. We are doing our IT, all of the Cisco certification networking, huge demand in that area, so people can keep whatever jobs they have now and then train towards that job that will provide that family-sustaining wage. So we are flipping an awful lot of things around to make sure we are doing everything we can to increase access for people in this community to take the next step with their careers.
Very good. Well, Sheila, we appreciate you, and just want to let people know if you hear a knock on your door late at night, it'll be Sheila with the message about how you can get maybe someone in your family a good job, and the employers are waiting and willing to pay for it. So
absolutely
great information, and thank you so much for coming here, and we'll have you, if you don't mind, love to have you come back and bring up whatever the latest thing is at ICC, which is, I know, an ongoing matter.
Well, thank you so much, and I'd be happy to do that.
Very good. All right, well, I want to thank Matt Dayhoff, who's been at the controls here, putting this thing together, and we'll just see you next time on Tartar Sauce.